Mpenzi wangu Afrika, mpenzi wangu Afrika, nakupenda mimi, nakupenda sana.
Good day again and a very warm welcome. This is Joga Afro. My name is Mbizo Mzamane, and this show brings you numerous on and off field topics and dialogue from the African continent and the diaspora for the love of Africa and football. Today, I want to discuss an issue that is rarely on the forefront of football development and progress. That is how FIFA's ranking system has prejudiced African nations and their performances at international tournaments, particularly the World Cup.
Mpenzi wangu Afrika, mpenzi wangu Afrika, nakupenda mimi.
You always hear about how much talent African nations produce. Aside from historical giants like Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Egypt, and Algeria, there are quite a lot of players of African descent that have ended up representing European nations and become quite successful over the course of their careers. Players like Zinedine Zidane or Claude Makelele are of African descent but have won the World Cup with France. Mozambican Eusebio, the Black Pearl, had a sterling career representing Portugal. Belgium has also had countless players of African descent come through their national team. Football giants such as Italy, Germany, I'd even hazard to say England, have all had players of African descent in their ranks. Today, even Nordic countries like Norway and Denmark have players of African descent in their ranks. So often when we discuss why an African nation has not won the World Cup, this is the issue that we focus on. The fact that countless African talents have been mined by countries around the world, therefore leaving African nations with lesser talent. Many folks cite that if these African players had played for their original nations, that perhaps they would have been able to win a World Cup by now. Unfortunately, the reality of the matter is not so simple. There are a number of issues that complicate this discussion. One of the issues is how FIFA ranks countries on their index and how those rankings affect seedings in World Cup draws. Firstly, it is absolutely outrageous that out of the 32 teams that are invited to the World Cup, a continent of 54 countries, with at least 8 of those consistently producing quality national teams, only 5 get to represent the continent at the World Cup. Europe, on the other hand, has 14 entries. That is a conversation for another time. Now, the World Cup draw places teams in 4 seeds: first, second, third, and fourth. Long story short, the higher ranked teams tend to be seeded first or second, while the lower ranked teams are seeded third and fourth. For the World Cup draw to create each group, they pull 1 team per seed until all 32 teams have been selected and placed into a group. So, theoretically, the better your seed, the easier your group will be. African teams are very rarely seeded quite high. Therefore, they find themselves having to play against some of the best teams in the world consistently in the group stages of the World Cup tournament. This naturally diminishes their chances of making it further into the World Cup. On the other hand, South American and European nations tend to have very good seeds and therefore have an easier time generally in the World Cup. I will explain one of the reasons why this occurs. Rankings are determined by results in national team matches, where points are allocated to teams based on their performances in official games. This is important because to seriously gain a higher rank, a nation needs to beat better teams, higher ranked teams, or win competitions. This brings me to the praxis of my point. African teams rarely have the opportunity to play European teams on home soil in the African continent. Again, why would this be important, you ask? Because essentially what it means is that due to European refusal to visit and play in countries like Nigeria and Senegal, to play the higher ranked teams in the world, Africans always have to travel to Europe to play. These higher ranked nations never come to Africa to play. Everybody knows the impact of home field advantage on football. And due to this Eurocentric bias and prejudice, African teams are almost never afforded that advantage, particularly against higher ranked teams. European nations will often cite safety concerns for their refusal to visit these nations and play. But these nations are safe enough for Africans to visit and play. Why are they not for Europeans? I know why, but I'll let you make your own conclusions as to why that is. This is not the only issue facing African nations with regards to winning and performing well in a World Cup. Not by a long shot. Therefore, addressing this issue will not automatically mean that African nations will begin doing better in the World Cup or will rank higher and be seeded higher. However, this is one among many Eurocentric aspects about world football that prejudice African nations. I would love to see more European nations playing in front of African fans in African stadiums, affording African nations atmospheric, climatic, and structural advantages that Europeans are always privileged to have. This would go a long way to evening the playing field, literally. Perhaps with more opportunities to rank higher and get better seeds, African nations will enjoy less attritional group stage qualification and therefore go further and do better in World Cup tournaments. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mbizo Mzamane, and I can't wait to see you back on Joga Afro's next installment. Don't forget to like the video and click to subscribe to stay current on all Afro football content. Until next time, this is Joga Afro for the love of Africa and football.
Mpenzi wangu Afrika, mpenzi wangu Afrika, nakupenda mimi, nakupenda sana.